Good morning. Good morning. Morning, everybody. All right, later got live here, live on YouTube. Let's get Instagram in the mix here. All right, we're live. We're live everywhere. What is going on, everybody? Good morning. Thank you very much for being here. I owe you guys 2 minutes this morning, minimum 2 minutes. So just expect this show to go longer than usual because I'm going to have to give some overtime today. I'm going to have to give some overtime. Thank you very much for being here. Let's all enjoy a nice cup of coffee this morning on this Tuesday, January 28th at 8:02 a.m. Thank you for being a part of the Sliwa Show. If you were part of the post-game show last night, long time no see. Was it been about 12 hours since we last saw each other? And then before the post-game show, it was the Sliwa Show. It was about another 10 hours before we saw each other. So we're spending a lot of time together these days. Got another Lakers game coming up tonight. Got a great show lined up today. Really looking forward to hit on a couple different things. I got to be honest with you, but I got kind of thrown off this morning. I got thrown off because I'm doing my research in the morning, trying to figure out what kind of topics that you guys want me to talk about and to hit on. Yesterday, it was conspiracy theory was the big one yesterday, right? We hit a lot of conspiracy theories yesterday. So today, you know what it's going to be about? Every freaking article that I read was Lakers trade rumors. I'm kind of starting to get a little sold here on maybe there's a real shot at Myles Turner. I don't know. We'll get into it. All right, couple things we do here to start off the show. First thing we do, I like reading off everybody a quote every morning. Here's a quote I got this morning. It's a long quote, by the way. For this little thing. It's like this. I think I've mentioned this to you guys before. There's a brand out there called Yogi. It's a tea brand. Every time I have a cup of tea, they leave me with a quote. Now, sometimes I get repeat customers here, right? Sometimes it's the same quote. So then I got to go online, find you guys a different quote. I don't think I've done this one. If I have, well, pay attention because I'm doing it again. When your inner and outer worlds harmonize, your relationships do too. When your inner and outer worlds harmonize, your relationships do too. All right, it's a good quote right there. Let me give everybody a quick rundown what we're going to do for this morning's show. Hope everybody's enjoying their cup of coffee or their tea or whatever it is that they have there. I've had some people kind of tell me, Slee, I'm enjoying some alcohol. Okay, that's a little early. It's a little early. I can't do that. What is this? San Diego State days? Can't do that. You kidding me? All right, let's give everyone a quick rundown of the show. We're gonna talk a little bit about last night's win over Charlotte. Lakers over the Charlotte Hornets. Not the game I expected at all, if I got to be honest with everybody. There are times where I will go for a walk or something like that, and I'm listening to the game for the first part of the game. So first quarter, I was out walking around, and by the time first quarter was done, I'm like, all right, it's going to be a blowout. That'll be a fun post-game show, this, that, whatever the case is. Got a lot closer than I would have liked it to. So we'll spend a little bit of time on last night's game, but not too much. I do want to actually kind of look forward. I think that's going to be more important. I mentioned here, one of the things I have on here is Myles Turner chatter. So I'm just going to keep this simple here. There are a lot of articles right now, especially on ESPN. Let me give ESPN some credit. This morning, I'm going on there. Bobby Marks, who used to come on my show all the time. It's a good dude. Really, really nice guy. Kind of like an expert when it comes to the cap and everything else. Bobby Marks had a couple articles out there of best fits with certain players, certain teams. So there were a few articles. There were a lot of people that were associated with the Lakers, but I think you guys will like this one because now that's going to be the third person in about the last week and a half that are all established journalists where Myles Turner's name keeps coming up. So we'll spend a little time talking about Myles Turner. I'll take a little bit different of a twist to it. Not only will I talk about if the Lakers can get him, if they did get him, where is that team now in the Western Conference? I already got the full trade proposal, okay? I think I got a half hour of sleep last night. I have a whiteboard, and it's 10 feet high, and I'm writing down different trade scenarios. You know what I mean? And I'm smoking a cigarette and I'm having coffee. And I'm like, yeah, but what happens here if Jalen Hood-Schifino and a second rounder goes over to Charlotte, then what happens? And I'm trying to put all the pieces together. If you guys ever watched It's Always Funny and It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, one of the greatest scenes. One of the characters on the show's smoking a cigarette, and he's got a cup of coffee, and he's trying to put together all these things. That was kind of me last night. Not at all, by the way. Not at all. All right, let me get another one here. Other potential trade fits. There's a full article. This is going to break down some other teams in the Western Conference. Something to keep in mind. I think it's interesting. It's interesting because the West seems like it's a lot more open than you would think. And who would have thought that? But the West is open. I don't think there's like a guarantee in the Western Conference that one team is getting out or the other. So some other trade scenarios there. Lakers at Sixers. We'll get a little bit into that game. I'm gonna have somebody come on with me that used to come on with me on radio. His name's Keith Pompey, and he covers the Sixers for the Philadelphia Inquirer. He's going to join the show about 8:45. He's going to come on. We'll talk a little bit about this. I got some interest in Philly. I got to be honest with you, but I don't know what's going on with that team. What are they going to do? What are they going to, is Joel Embiid happy? Are they regretting the Paul George? I got some NBA questions for him. We'll get into a little bit of this Jimmy Butler stuff going on, and then we'll keep going. So good morning to everybody. Thank you for being a part of the show. Please subscribe to the channel if you've yet to subscribe to the channel, and we'll keep the show moving. Just so, what's better than a nice cup of coffee? What's better than a nice cup of coffee? Another cup of coffee in the afternoon with some kind of sweet. Okay? A Middle Eastern. That's what we do. We have a lot of coffee, and then there's some sweets that are always kind of intertwined with what we're doing. All right, let's get the show going here. A lot of people here. All right. Good morning. Good morning, Slee. Good morning to everybody as well. All right. Last night, Lakers, welcome Instagram, by the way. I haven't really been using Instagram that much. So thank you, Instagram. Thank you for being a part of the show. Last night, Lakers play Charlotte. I'm going to give my just kind of quick thoughts here. Lakers got a W. They've now won 6 of their last 7 games. They gained a little bit of ground in the Western Conference because Denver lost. I don't know what ended up happening with some of the other teams, but I know Denver took an L last night, surprisingly against Chicago out of all teams. I don't know if they had everybody. I know Jokic was playing in that game. So anyways, whatever happened, happened. So Lakers kind of find themselves in a position. Clippers also lost. So now you got Denver has 18 losses. Lakers have 18 losses. So you're 1 game out of the number 4 spot. And the Clippers now, they lost as well. So Lakers 2-game cushion in the loss column against the Clippers. And they got the Clippers coming up within the next week or so. So we'll see if they can get a little bit of revenge. Not an impressive game. I don't think last night, I don't think anybody's walking away. LeBron had a quote after the game. He said something like, "We're better after today." And while I was doing the postgame, I'm like, no, they're not. No, nothing happened tonight that I walked away saying the Lakers are better after that game against Charlotte. Here's why the game was disappointing for me. Yes, get your win and move on. Absolutely, 100%. But if I'm going to be real, which I prefer being real on this show, they missed kind of a really good opportunity. You're up, I want to say at the end of the first quarter, they're up 20, 39-19. You got a 20-point lead. All you got to do from there is just kind of sustain that the rest of the way. By the time you get to halftime, be around 18-20. By the time the fourth quarter starts, be between 16 and 20 points up. So then you don't have to play AD and LeBron 36 and 37 minutes on a second of a back-to-back that's coming up because you're flying from Charlotte to Philly. And, you obviously got the Sixers game coming up. Now, fortunately for the Lakers, Philly is missing a lot of their key players, but still, it doesn't matter. You could lose to any team in the NBA. We saw the Lakers lose to Dallas without Luka and without Kyrie. So I thought last night was disappointing from that perspective. Just from the mere fact that the Lakers built up this lead. They went up by 20 by the time the first quarter was done. AD dropped, 21 and 11 or whatever he had, but ended up with 40 plus and 20 plus rebounds, 42 and 23 or whatever his ridiculous stat line. It would just have been nicer if the Lakers said, let's not play with our food tonight. Let's take care of business. Really, Anthony Davis was the only player of substance last night. I thought LeBron was okay. I thought Austin Reeves was okay. I thought their role players were okay. I didn't think, really anything much anything more than that. Now, Lakers were missing Rui. They were also missing Gabe Vincent. But I walk away from last night's game saying this to myself. If they lose tonight, I'm going to blame it on last night. If they win tonight, then last night literally doesn't mean anything, and they'll have gone 3-0 to start out their road trip with a chance against the Washington Wizards later in the week. I think they play them on Thursday to go 4-0. So that's the best way that I can kind of describe last night's game. It's a W, take it, move on, but it doesn't mean you have to love the W. It doesn't mean you have to look at that win and say, oh, this was great. When LeBron said, we got better tonight, I could have taken it one of two ways. My first instinct was, no, they didn't. The second instinct was, all right, maybe they learned some stuff from tonight, and then they take it and they move it on to the rest of the season. But the bottom line is, obviously they get a win. No LaMelo Ball after 9 minutes of the game. That was another reason why I was disappointing. And Brandon Miller didn't play in that game as well. Another kind of youngster, a really talented young stud that Charlotte has. So ultimately, they got the win. AD had another ridiculous game, but nobody else I really felt did all that much for the Lakers, and we'll move on, and they'll take on the Philadelphia 76ers tonight. You beat Philly tonight. Whatever happened last night doesn't mean anything. You lose tonight, then a lot of us are probably going to say, if it looked like they had tired legs or whatever the case is, all that stuff, you're going to say, well, that's what you get for playing your main guys 37, 38 minutes all the way till the final buzzer against Charlotte. So those are just my quick thoughts on last night's game. I had a little bit more time, to think about it once the game was over. Woke up this morning and I'm like, you know what? No, here's how it went. They got the win. Great. But they didn't play well. It was just a kind of a very uninteresting game, uninspired game by the Lakers, but they got the win and they'll move on. All right. I got to get into some of this other stuff that I mentioned, and then I'll look back at some of the comments here. I know there's a lot of comments rolling in right now, so I'll get to these in just a little bit. Let's jump into an article here. Let's do it together. Everybody do me a favor. Everybody hold hands. We're all going to sing Kumbaya, and we're all going to jump into this article together, okay? Right now on ESPN, the front article, it's Bobby Marks. Lakers' biggest deadline question and a deal that works. Okay. So there are a couple things that kind of come into play here. And, like I mentioned, this is an article on ESPN, good article written by Bobby Marks. And it's kind of looking at the scenario and the question marks we've been talking about with the Lakers here, really since they made the trade for Dorian Finney-Smith. One of the things I loved about that trade, I loved how early it was. I remember doing a couple pods right after that trade, and it's like, guys, we're not even into January yet, and Pelinka's already made a move that I think makes a lot of sense. Now, only concern I had with that trade was, did you give up the D'Angelo Russell contract, which was very valuable, that's now going to hold you back from making some other deals? Okay. Let me share my screen here with you guys. All right. Let me find this here. Ads everywhere. Everywhere I look, there's ads. And let me share my screen, and then we could kind of walk through this thing together, because I do think there's some interesting stuff in here that we can, obviously look at the same time. All right. So here's the trade. Here's a website. It's called ESPN.com. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of it. They're a sports company. Really small right now, but the idea is they may grow a little. All right, ESPN, here's the cover of it, okay? NBA trade deadline tiers, deal scenarios, outlook for all 30 teams. We're obviously not going to be going through all 30 teams, but I'm going to show you some pieces of this. Something to keep in mind, and I've mentioned this a couple different times. Pay attention to where some of these other, what some of these other Western Conference teams are going to do, because, we could obviously look at the Lakers and everybody can, pay attention and look at the Lake show and say, what are the Lakers going to do? Are they going to do this? Are they going to do that? There's some interesting scenarios in here that certainly make some of these teams in the Western Conference better. So, keep that in mind. Like, let me show you guys this one. Sacramento. Here's one trade that he says, keep in mind and could potentially happen. Sacramento getting Cam Johnson. I saw something in here. Jimmy Butler going to the Memphis Grizzlies. Brandon Ingram either getting an extension with the Pelicans, but not getting the max, which is what he's looking for, or the other idea on the concept was him going to the San Antonio Spurs. Okay, so here's what I want to show everybody. All right, so here we are with the Indiana Pacers. Everybody with me here? Everybody with me? Okay. Give me a thumbs up since I can't see it, just to know that everybody's with me. All right, here's where we are on this. What are the Indiana Pacers going to do? And this is why the Myles Turner thing becomes more and more interesting. Let me take everybody back over the last week and a half. What's happened? What's gone down with Myles Turner? About a week and a half ago, Dan Wyke of the LA Times was on the show. And Dan Wyke kind of casually mentioned Myles Turner. And then I jumped in and I'm like, yeah, Dan, but I don't know. I mean, look at the way the Indiana Pacers are playing. They're top 5, top 6 in the Eastern Conference. Are they really going to go? And they're playing good ball. They're starting to play some good basketball. Are they really going to trade Myles Turner at this stage? He's an important player for them. I think he's 15, 7, and 2, 15 points a game, 7 rebounds, and about 2 block shots a game. Would they really consider trading him at this stage of the season? I mean, wouldn't Pacer fans be upset? All that stuff, okay? All right, then maybe a week goes by, over the weekend, actually. There's an article out there. Jovan Buha had a quote. And Jovan's quote was, they could potentially, because of the contract situation of Myles Turner, they could potentially look to move him. All right, now there's 2 guys. And then this morning, I'm reading this article from Bobby Marks, and now Bobby Marks is mentioned. We're going to go kind of walk through this together. The only reason why they would do this, okay, it says Indiana Pacers, keep an eye on Myles Turner and Obi Toppin. The only reason why they do this, I'm going to kind of forward, or I'm going to go a little bit further down. Starting center Myles Turner is a free agent, along with one of their other players who's eligible for a rookie extension. Not including Turner in their first-round pick, the Pacers will be $20 million below the luxury tax in July. The following season, they are $37 million below the tax without Turner and without Mathurin. If both players are signed, the Pacers, barring a trade, could be luxury tax teams in consecutive seasons. All right, so this is all about the apron and everything else. Let's just forward here. The third is to shed the $45 million owed to Obi Toppin. One trade that works. This is the third person now that's mentioned Myles Turner and the Los Angeles Lakers. All right, one trade that works. This is only if the Indiana Pacers are saying, we don't want to pay Myles Turner at the end of the season, and they don't want to lose him for nothing if he decides to walk away. He's a complete free agent, unrestricted free agent at the end of the season. So their thought process is there's 3 different things they could do. One thing they could do is say, F it, we're going to play out the rest of the season. We're going to give our fans a first-round exit, because that's probably what's going to happen. I mean, if you're the Indiana Pacers, are you beating the Knicks in the 7-game set? Are you beating the Boston Celtics, the Cleveland Cavaliers? Depending on Orlando, maybe that's the matchup that you get, and Orlando hasn't been all that healthy. Maybe that's the one that you're looking for. But you're basically saying we're going to win a round, we're not going to win a round, and then it's over. We keep Myles Turner for that. That's one scenario. The second scenario is trade Myles Turner right now and, take your chances and just get as much assets as you can. And the third scenario is you take your chances of trying to extend him in the offseason. Okay, here's the trade that Bobby Marks has mentioned. Guys, I know I've mentioned this a lot of different times, and, I think some Laker fans, I don't think there's too many Laker fans that would be, incredibly upset if Rui Hachimura is not part of the team, but I keep mentioning Rui. There's a reason why I keep mentioning Rui. I mentioned Rui Hachimura because his contract is about $17 million a year. You just got Jared Vanderbilt back. You traded for Dorian Finney-Smith. There are now players that can play the role of Rui Hachimura. By the way, if you get a guy like Myles Turner, okay, well, what's going to happen if you get a guy like Myles Turner? Now everybody slots down a little bit. Anthony Davis goes from the 5 down to the 4. You got some other guys, obviously, that will now be, if they were playing the 4, they're going to play the 3. However you want to put LeBron, however you want to kind of figure out the rest of the starting lineup, I know there would be changes that come with all that. So a lot of those guys maybe now are coming off the bench. But the point that I'm trying to make is, here is the trade scenario that they're putting out there. You use one of your first rounders, which we know the quote that's been out there that Rob Pelinka's had, obviously for years now. use one of your first rounders. You use Rui Hachimura. They look like they're trying to get some other, teams involved to kind of make the deal work. And the Lakers would end up with Myles Turner. There are ways to get Myles Turner. There are scenarios out there that are not just the Lakers saying, we need Myles Turner. There's scenarios out there that the Indiana Pacers, they got some questions that they got to ask themselves. I still maintain, if you ask me today, if the Indiana Pacers, you're putting their feet under some fire and they're saying, make the trade or don't, I think there's going to be a lot of pressure for them to say, play out the rest of the year with Myles Turner. I think if they weren't playing well, I want to see one thing real quick as far as the standings go. Let's see exactly where they are right now in the standings, just to kind of see what they're, who they would face in the first round. They would face Milwaukee in the first round right now if the playoffs are. I mentioned Orlando. That's right. Orlando's kind of completely going the other way because of all their injuries. But Orlando will be back in the mix if they can be healthy. Your top four right now in the East: Cleveland, Boston, New York, Milwaukee. Do you see Indiana beating Milwaukee in a 7-game set? I don't. But if you're the Indiana Pacers, don't you want just your fan base to feel a certain way? Are you really going to get rid of Myles Turner, who's been a really good player for you? Now, you better know what you're doing, and you got to say that first rounder is so valuable, and we got, obviously a big plan in mind, but I still think it's going to be a challenge to get Myles Turner. Let's pretend that we're sitting here, and remember the trade deadline's February 6th, so it's a week from this Thursday. Let's pretend Myles Turner is traded to the Los Angeles Lakers. I want to play out one other scenario with everybody. Then I'll start looking at the comments. What does it then do to this Lakers team? All right. Let's just play out the exact trade that he mentioned. Rui is out. Jalen Hood-Schifino is out. 1 first-rounder is out. Okay. Myles Turner now becomes your center at your 5. Can I give you guys a quick stat here? There was an article that I read this morning, too. It was on ESPN as well. It's making the case for what Anthony Davis wants. The Lakers are allowing the 3rd most points in the paint this year in the NBA. 5th most in second chance points in the NBA. AD has played center 96% of the time this season. In that championship run that the Lakers had in 2019-2020 season where Dwight Howard was there and JaVale McGee, he played 40% of his time at center. So he's playing this year, 96% of his time is played at the center spot. The year they won a championship, he played the center spot 40% of the time. So it just shows you how drastic the difference is. And for those who don't think the Lakers need another big or this type of a player, the stats again, right now the Lakers are allowing 3rd most points in the paint in the NBA, 5th most in second chance points. Okay. I think some of that stuff will get cleaned up with Jared Vanderbilt. I think that's going to help him. But I think the idea and the concept is what I'm talking about. Let's say the Lakers make the trade for Myles Turner. Here's your starting lineup now. Myles Turner is at the 5. Anthony Davis is at the 4. LeBron is at the 3. Let's keep 1 and 2 the exact same. Max Christie and Austin Reeves is your backcourt. That's your starting 5. Let's just play that one out. Let's keep it right there. Now, I think there's going to be bigger games, or maybe if you get into the playoffs, I think JJ Redick would experiment a little bit and say, okay, if I take Max Christie out because of his lack of experience, let me throw Dorian Finney-Smith into that starting lineup. I think the Lakers should consider that, especially if they make that trade for Myles Turner. Or some people might make the case, no, put Vando there, but you could see the options that you have. Let's just pretend it's Max Christie in the starting lineup. Now, all of a sudden, your bench, you got Dorian Finney-Smith. You got Gabe Vincent. You got Jackson Hayes still. You got Jared Vanderbilt still. Obviously, Dalton Knecht is there as well. Who am I missing on that Lakers roster? Am I missing somebody? I think I got everybody. That starting 5 and basically your first 7, 8 guys, it's a pretty good roster right there. And if you're looking at a Lakers team, I think I got everybody. If you want to go really, really deep down and you're talking about Shake Milton or something along those lines, I guess you could throw that. Will the Lakers use Cam Reddish? I mean, they haven't really been using him at all. So that's something to keep in mind. But if you look at the Western Conference right now, let's say you took the best 5 on that Lakers roster versus the best 5 of some of these other teams out there. Myles Turner, Anthony Davis, LeBron James, Austin Reeves. I put DFS in there or Jared Vanderbilt. If you're saying give me your best 5. Some people will make a case for Max Christie. That's fine. You can make that case. For me, it has more to do with experience. But that also shows you how much more Max Christie has contributed this year to even be in that conversation. So those are good problems to have where you're like, no, I would put that guy in. No, I put that guy in. Guys, that's a real starting 5. It's a real starting 5. That's a starting 5 that's got some nice balance. I don't know if you guys know this about Myles Turner as well. He's close to 40% from the three-point line as well. So it's not like Myles Turner is just clogging the middle and then Anthony Davis can't do work. You got to respect his jumper from the outside. So, listen, is something imminent, right? Is something going down in the next day or two where it's like, hey, Lakers are going to get Myles Turner? No, that's not the case. But it's now the 3rd different person in this last week and a half that's saying, keep an eye on the Indiana Pacers and Myles Turner. Of all the names that we've mentioned, Jakob Poeltl, Jonas Valanciunas, Robert Williams, Walker Kessler, any big that you could think of that's been associated with the Lakers over the course of this last, let's call it 2.5, 3 weeks. None fits better, would be more prepared for a playoff run, has the proper experience, can complement Anthony Davis more than Myles Turner, period. Like, I don't even think this is a case. I don't think there's a question mark that comes into that. I just think I think it's interesting. Again, I'm going to emphasize this because it will take a lot for Myles Turner to become a Laker. It will take a lot for him to be available in the market. And it's all going to start with the Indiana Pacers saying to themselves, all right, do we want to take this team that's actually playing well? They've won 8 of their last 10 games. That's part of my hesitation too. Usually you see teams start selling when they start going this way, right? And most franchises, they don't stop momentum. Most franchises will do anything they can to sell some tickets and kind of convince their fan base like, hey, look, we're pretty good. Hey, we're not bad. So that's going to be the challenge that comes with it. All right, let's take a look at some of the comments here as we keep the show rolling. Do one thing here. We'll stop sharing this. There's a lot of good stuff in this article. You know, I mentioned to you guys that that some of the different potential trade scenarios out there. Keep an eye on the West because if you guys think, I think one of the quotes that I took out of that article most was the West is wide open. Never really looked at the West like that. But there isn't this slam dunk team. I could find holes in every team. And that doesn't mean that I'm telling you that there's a path for the Lakers. But what I can tell you is Dallas, I don't think has many holes. They just got to be healthy. OKC, I don't think has many holes. They just got to be healthy. Maybe you say a little bit of inexperience, but I thought they addressed that when they got Isaiah Hartenstein, they got Alex Caruso, they got a little bit tougher, a little bit bigger. You know, I thought they addressed some of that stuff. So I think those are, I think after that, Memphis, Houston, Denver, Clippers, go down the list of all these other teams in the Western Conference. I think there's legitimate question marks. So it might just come down to what team makes the smartest move over the next week and a half is going to potentially be the team that everybody's looking at in the Western Conference and saying, hey, that might be the team to beat. And I'm not, by no means am I trying to, disrespect what OKC has done or any of that, because I still think that that's the team right now. All right, let's take a look at some of your comments. By the way, if you put some comments in earlier while I was doing my rant and I missed you, just put them in again because I can't start from where I was. I'm going to kind of start with some of these that are in here right now. All right, let me read one real quick. Richard, thank you for the super, brother. Rui, Gabe, first or second equals Turner. Also, go to the coffee. Thank you, Richard. I don't know what go to coffee means, but I assume what you're saying here is have a sip of coffee. Cheers, brother. Thank you very much right there. You probably don't have to give up Gabe. I kind of gave you what the trade scenario is based on what Myles Turner makes. So keep in mind, it would be Rui, Jalen Hood, Shafino, and throw a first rounder in there. And it sounds like if he's available. Now, listen, if I'm also other teams in the Western Conference, I'm going to try to get Myles Turner. I'm going to try. Lakers need Myles Turner more than any other team out there. They do. I mean, I just think what he brings to the table, how Anthony Davis is asking and pleading for another guard or another big, I think that says a lot right there. Richard, thank you for the super. Another super one real quick. No team should take Jimmy. Bad news. I'll come back to this because we got to talk Jimmy Butler, who was suspended again indefinitely, I think for 5 more games, which takes him past the trade deadline. He walked out of practice because they told him he's not going to be a starter anymore. We'll get into Jimmy in just a second. All right, let me go to a little bit, some of these other comments here. Let me keep going here. Let's see what else we got here. If AD will not prove this playoffs that he is a best player on a championship caliber team, then you're maybe right. I think this is a response to somebody else. Guys, I got no, anybody that looks at Anthony Davis. I mean, maybe where I would have a little bit of hesitation on Anthony Davis is if your hesitation before on AD was, hey, you know what? He's not available. These last 2 seasons, knock on wood, he's been as available as you can possibly be. Played 76 games last year. What does he miss this year? 2 games, maybe 3 games so far. We're halfway through the season, so he's on pace for another 74 plus games or whatever the case is. I don't have any issues with Anthony Davis. The chatter of can you hand AD the keys to the Lakers franchise and say that's it, it's his franchise? No, he's going to need somebody as good as him right there with him when LeBron decides to retire. All right, let's get another one here. This is an interesting one. When I look at the Western Conference, there's some people out there, which is fair, by the way. I don't. If everybody thinks that's it, it's OKC and that's it. Nobody's got a chance. Nobody's going to beat the Oklahoma City Thunder. You can make a case. They're stacked. They're phenomenal. I mean, you go look at the standings right now, what they've been able to do this year. You could definitely make a case. Here's the one thing that I will say about OKC. I think last year there were a lot of Laker fans that were saying, hey, if we can match up against OKC, I think we got a shot. OKC's only got 8 losses this year. They've been phenomenal. Just Shai Gilgeous will basically start etching his name into the MVP because he'll probably end up winning the MVP. But I think with all that in mind, something to just keep in mind as we have this conversation, teams got to also go through the gauntlet and get to the NBA Finals. And until they do, there's always a little bit of hesitation behind them. And then if they do finally win it, like Boston always had hesitation until they finally won the whole thing. So I think there's always going to be some hesitation with a team until they win the entire thing. You don't get championships for winning in the regular season. Now, I think OKC is phenomenal. All right, let's get another one here. Said it before, I'll say it again. Rob Pelinka is trading Anthony Davis to the Rockets for Amon Jones. No, he's not. Not happening. Not happening. He's not going anywhere. Unless he's the one that says, I want to go somewhere. Slee keeps trying to just convince himself. You might be right. I may be trying to convince myself. Join me in the convincing process. Hey, if these articles weren't out there and there wasn't some kind of chatter and conversation about it, I wouldn't even bother mentioning any of this stuff. But I'm just going off of, obviously what some of these articles have said there. All right, let's get a couple more here. OKC is unproven. That part I agree with. But they're a phenomenal team. Phenomenal team. Okay, let's keep. So we got that Myles Turner thing in. I did want to mention that some of the different scenarios out there that I mentioned as well. There was another. Let me actually get into this right now. Let's do this here real quick. Jimmy Butler situation, because somebody else had mentioned it. I want to kind of get this out of the way. This is a conversation. I still think Jimmy Butler on a good Western Conference team could be a problem. I think I mentioned to you guys that one of the trade scenarios out there was Jimmy Butler going to Memphis. I think Marcus Smart was part of that deal. There were a couple different guys they had in there. I think there was some draft compensation that was there as well. I'm not really sure what to take of Jimmy Butler anymore. I said this in the beginning. I think Jimmy Butler's probably best shot and his best chance of this entire scenario and wanting to get traded was just kind of come to work and be a professional. Well, that clearly is not the case. The article that came out, I think it was yesterday. It's funny. Right when I saw the article, Jimmy Butler suspended again after walking out, I kind of rolled my eyes. I'm like, Jimmy, you're not helping yourself here. So they were getting ready to the Heat were planning to replace him in the starting lineup with another one of their players, Haywood Highsmith. And they were getting ready to basically bring him in off the bench. And then he said, cool, then I'm just going to go ahead and walk out a shoot around and not show up to practice and then call it a day. So Miami puts out their statement. So Butler has now missed 9 of Miami's 12 previous games. If I got the finances right here, Jimmy Butler's facing losing $532,737 per game under the latest suspension. I mean, isn't this hurting Jimmy Butler way more than it's hurting Miami? Isn't this just making Jimmy Butler look like somebody, whether he's right or wrong? Isn't it going to hesitate? Aren't there going to be other teams out there that hesitate to trade for him and say, I don't know if I want to trade for Jimmy Butler under these circumstances? I don't know if, especially because you're going to need to figure out, is Jimmy Butler looking for an extension next year? Clearly he is, which is why he's not happy in Miami. Does he give up his contract, his player option next year? There's a lot of scenarios that are going to play out for other teams trying to trade for Jimmy Butler. But here's the problem with Jimmy Butler. The problem with Butler is Miami is known as a well-run organization with a top-notch front office and arguably the best coach in the NBA. Jimmy Butler it's not like he plays for Charlotte or he plays for this franchise. You're like, oh, hey, this franchise has no idea where they're going. It's Miami. It's Pat Riley. It's Eric Spoelstra. So not only is Jimmy Butler look awful in the situation, whether you agree with the situation or not, he looks unprofessional. He's losing 500 G's plus a game. I think there will be some hesitation from some teams out there to say, let's trade for Jimmy. Maybe not. Listen, maybe some teams say, we're going to roll the dice. Jimmy Butler is a good enough player to bring on this team. We're going to take our chances. That's probably going to end up happening anyways, just because of the circumstance and the predicament. But it's not look good for Jimmy Butler. I don't think there's, a scenario out there for Jimmy Butler right now that anybody's kind of painting this the right way for Jimmy Butler. Not a good look for anyone in Miami. Butler's trade value is going down too. Butler needs to get out of his feelings because it's hurting more than helping him. I think that's my point. I think my point is that I'm not trying to agree or disagree with why Jimmy Butler wants to get traded. I'm not trying to make a case that he doesn't deserve an extension. I'm not trying to make any of that case. What I'm saying is, at the end of the day, who is this going to affect more? I think it's going to affect Jimmy Butler more. Some people in here are talking about that it makes Miami look bad as well. And listen, they're going to have don't get me wrong, they're going to have a little bit of not a black eye, but a lot of people are going to look at Miami a little bit differently because this doesn't usually happen in Miami. And to have something this public, and this is the third time that they're suspending him, just a bad look for all parties. But I do think at the end of the day, it's going to look worse for Jimmy Butler than anybody else. At least that's my, initial reaction to it. All right, let's keep going here. Lakers should take a risk on Jimmy Butler. I would listen to your conversation if you told me that a month ago. The problem is they traded D'Angelo Russell. So if you were going to go out and trade for one of those types of players, you can't do it anymore. So that's not going to happen anymore. That basically is out of the picture. Okay. I want to hit on one more quick article here. We're going to do this in actually a few minutes. We'll hit on an article. There was another story on ESPN, best fits on NBA contenders for 10 key players. It kind of all the same names for the Lakers. It's kind of funny how many different players they had associated with the Lakers, but Jordan Clarkson was in there. Best fit, they had Lakers and Orlando. Zach LaVine was on there. Actually, they had him finding a way to get to Golden State, I think was one of the scenarios. Another one was Zach LaVine going to the Clippers. But again, this is just all best fits. I don't think a lot of these are actually in contention to happen, so we won't spend too much time on that. I do want to welcome in our guest for today. Very, very nice of him to spend some time in joining the show. So Lakers got the Sixers coming up tonight. I want to welcome in Keith Pompey from the Philadelphia Inquirer. Keith, what's going on, man? Good morning.
What's good, man? Good morning. How you been?
Been good, man. How about yourself?
Oh, I can't complain.
I appreciate your time. I had mentioned it in the chat. I was talking about it a little bit yesterday. You and I got a chance, obviously to connect a lot during last couple of years. Every time Lakers and Philly played, I mentioned to you yesterday, I'm like, hey, listen, I'm 100% on YouTube now. I'm not at 70. You're like, I'm in. So I appreciate your time. Thank you, brother.
Bro, anytime, my man. You know that.
Okay, let's start with this. So Lakers got the Sixers coming up tonight.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of funny. There's certain teams in the NBA that I'm not going to pretend I know a lot about, but I have interest in. Philly was one of those teams that when the offseason started, you thought to yourself, wow, PG coming on that team. They already got Maxxey, obviously Joel Embiid, one of the elite players in the NBA. Can you give – there's a lot of people that are on this channel that are Laker fans.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give us a little bit of a background? What's happened this year with the Philadelphia 76ers and kind of fill us, I guess, up to speed as we're halfway through the season? What exactly has happened to that team?
The 76ers have been the biggest disappointment in the NBA this season. And it's it's mostly because of injuries. They've been decimated by injuries. The one thing about the 76ers, like you talk about it, they got Tyrese Maxxey, they have Paul George, they have Joel Embiid, but the roster is basically set up for those three guys. And then let's fit role players around them. Well, the problem is those three guys have only played on the floor together for 10 games, and they only completed 7 of those games. Embiid left twice, and then Paul George left once. So they're 6-1 in the games that all three have completed. There's a team that one of those games were Christmas night against the Boston Celtics, and then another game where Embiid didn't play, but they played well, was last week against Cleveland. But aside from that, they've been a major disappointment due to injuries, and even playing the Lakers, they're going to have like 6 guys who are not going to play due to injuries. So it's been a major disappointment for the people here in Philadelphia.
Yeah, and I saw, obviously some of the main names here of some of the guys that aren't going to play. I saw that Embiid's on there. He's out. Paul George is out. I want to say Andre Drummond, Caleb Martin, KJ Martin, Jared McCain. So am I missing anybody, or is that? I mean, that's half the roster right there.
Yeah, that's half of it. And then Yabusele is Gershon Yabusele is listed as probable. And the main problem is when you look at this team, it's small. Paul George at 6'8" is really the third tallest guy on the team. Number 1 is Embiid at 7'2". Number 2 is Drummond at 6'11", and then Paul George. And then the next tallest is Yabusele. He's listed as 6'8", but he's actually 6'7". So they're going to be a tiny team facing the Lakers tonight. They're just going to be a small team.
Is there any thoughts at all? I mean, I know the NBA trade deadline's coming up here about a week and a half away. Are there any thoughts in Philly to either be buyers or sellers, or I guess, what is the goal at this point because of where they're sitting? Is it just to make the play-in tournament? I'm curious the trade deadline and what their overall goal is.
Basically they wanted to evaluate everything, particularly like they were hoping that guys would be healthy, right? To where they could play and then they can evaluate stuff during this stretch. But it seems like if they do anything, it's going to probably be most likely sellers. They have guys like Yabusele, who is making him a minimum deal, 1 year minimum salary contract. Right now, as much as they love him, but if they don't make any real moves, they're going to have to get rid of him. He's going to go elsewhere, or they're just going to lose him. So he could be someone that they can look to trade. Caleb Martin could be another one. KJ Martin could be as well, and Kelly Oubre. And, there's a lot of people talking about Paul George. Well, can they get rid of Paul George's salary? The question that I have is, Paul George has only played he's missed 14 games already. Tonight's going to be 15. And he's about to be 35 with 3 years left on his contract. If your timeline isn't to win this season, are you willing to invest in a guy who hasn't played a lot of games and he'll probably be 38 at the end of that contract? Like, are you willing to do that? And I don't know if I was a team, if I would do it. I don't know. Now, you never know. People always panic or they do crazy things, but I don't know if you're willing to take $212 million on a guy who's already missed 14 games this season.
Is there already some regret in that contract? Are there already, you think listen, I get the idea and the concept, and Paul George, when the Clippers decided, hey, we're not giving him X amount of dollars, X amount of years. I get a team like Philly saying, well, this might be an opportunity for us to swoop in, but 200 and change and 3 more years after that, and he's already starting to, miss games and everything else. You think PG is there in a couple of years, or you think there's a good chance that Philly says to themselves, yeah, that's not the right guy?
I think if they could probably, that's a great question to ask because I think is predicated on a lot of things, right? First of all, like, are you going to be able to get somebody who's going to buy this contract? I mean, take this contract off your hands. I felt like in the beginning, I think they always knew that when PG probably turned 37, that he wouldn't be the same guy. And I also think that when they did get PG, they felt as if that he was going to be a third option. Now, when you look at it that way, and you say that Maxxey has the ball in his hand, he's playing at a high level, Joel Embiid is dominating, and then you have PG being a solid two-way player, well, you look at that as an upgrade over Tobias Harris. The problem is that Embiid hasn't been playing a lot. And PG had been nicked a little bit. So he's not playing to the level that they expected. But again, he was supposed to be a third option, so I don't know. I think that if I'm the 76ers, in a couple years, you may want to have to see what you can do in regards to getting rid of him. But at this particular time, it's kind of like, what are you going to get back for him?
Sure.
I mean, is that going to be are you going to get what you deem equal value? And you probably won't at this particular time. Especially
a team's taking on that contract in the years. They're not, they're going to, it's going to be a risk for them as well. So just like, Philly's actually sitting here looking at that contract, other teams will as well. Usually we get a chance anytime we play some of these East Coast teams. There are certain players I get excited to watch because I'm only going to get a chance to see them a couple times. I mean, I know I watch League Pass, everything else, but Tyrese Maxxey, get an opportunity to watch him tonight. Can you just, I guess, fill us in and fill Laker fans in there? What should we expect to see from him tonight? Lakers had a game last night and they jump out on shot. This is kind of part of the Lakers pedigree. Now they are playing better. They are 8 games over 500. They're kind of finding themselves right in the thick of the Western Conference. but they took a 20-point lead against Charlotte at the end of the first quarter. LaMelo Ball goes out with an ankle injury, and it's a dogfight through the rest of the game, and AD dropped 40 and 20 and whatever he did. Tyrese Maxey's, I'm excited to watch him play tonight. What can we expect from him, knowing that he's going to be the primary focus?
You expect to see a blur on the TV screen. I mean, and the reason I'm saying that, Tyrese Maxey is fast. Like, I thought, like, Ben Simmons, when Ben Simmons was here, everybody talked about Ben Simmons being one of the fastest guys in the league with the ball. You know, Tyrese Maxey is faster than him, you know, to a point where you look at it and you're amazed that he never wanted to run track growing up. Like, seriously, he's that quick. You know, the thing is, you're going to see, especially tonight, Tyrese Maxey taking a lot of shots. They're all, and not to be critical or anything like that, because they're not all going to be shots that people are like, hey, the Lakers fans, first time seeing them. Yeah, they're not going to say that. But what it is he's a guy that's trying to do whatever he can to will them to win. And so sometimes he's just forcing up things. He's doing whatever he can. But and you're probably going to be amazed, because what Tyrese Maxey is going to do is he's probably going to be on the floor for the first 11 minutes of the first quarter, 11 minutes and 10 seconds. He's going to take a 50-second break. He's going to play the entire second quarter, the entire third quarter, and he's going to start on the bench for 4 minutes, the first 4 minutes of the fourth, and then he ain't coming out after that. So, you know, you're going to see this guy going 100 miles an hour throughout, trying to do a lot of different things and willing the Sixers team to win. He doesn't quit. The one thing that I will say about Maxey, though, is he's a hard worker, but he's gotten better each year in a different category. Beforehand, you know, defense was a major weakness, and he can improve in that area still, but he's third in the league in steals, right? Mm-hmm. And, you know, for a guy in the beginning who struggled mightily, you know, you look at that and you say to yourself, wow, he's doing well. And he averaged close to 30 points over the last 10 games. And that's since Joel Embiid hasn't been available. You know, Tyrese Maxey really stepped up, and he's been doing a lot of the things that people expected Paul George to do. But Tyrese Maxey he's been a beast. Now, again, he shoots the ball a lot, and he takes some crazy shots, but a lot of that's because he feels a need, and the Sixers feel a need, that him being the first and second or third option, that they need him to do a lot. And with that comes some, you know, some suspect shot selections, but he's just doing it because he's trying to win.
It's a good test, because I think for the Lakers, you know, you're finding yourself, first off, the team can be hot and cold. You know, one half they might be great, second half it's a completely different team. But anytime you got one of these elite fast point guards, you know what the Western Conference looks like with guys like Ja Morant and De'Aaron Fox, and every single night it's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Every single night it's just an elite point guard. So seeing Tyrese Maxey tonight, Lakers starting to get a little bit healthier. They just got Jared Vanderbilt back. They traded for Dorian Finney-Smith. So there's some curiosity of just how they play against him. What's your perception of, you know, we are in our own little bubble out here, and everybody views the Lakers one way or the other. Out in Philadelphia, or, you know, as you kind of cover the Sixers, but also your interest in the NBA, what's your kind of thoughts and feelings of what you've seen or what you've heard of from the Lakers this year?
You know, the Lakers are a funny team, because not funny, but, you know, I mean, I love JJ Redick. I've known him since he was in high school, believe it or not, right? So it's crazy. But anyway, so I love JJ, brilliant mind, you know, but the problem with the Lakers to me is I feel like they're so heavy on LeBron and AD, which is great. But then what they do is the problem is getting the other pieces to fit in, and basically getting these guys to take like these starring roles, so to speak. You know, I felt like the Lakers of the past, yes, you had Kobe, you had Shaq, you had Magic, you had Kareem, but you also had other guys who contributed in a big way. And when I look at the Lakers roster from time to time now, it's like they're all guys that we all know about, but they tend to become, from more often than not, they tend to be guys who their teams gave up on during their rookie contract, right? Because teams didn't want to pay them. And then you get them in here and you feel like it's going to fit. And then you get upset when it doesn't. And then all of a sudden, every time at the trade deadline, the question is, well, we got to get new pieces. We got to do this. We got to do that. So I just feel like the Lakers, they have two guys who are going to be all-time greats. But at the same time, it's just the roster construction is not what you think it would be for the Lakers, if that makes sense.
No, it makes sense, Keith. I think, that actually, you're right. Let's look at the Kobe Shaq days. Yeah, we know Kobe and Shaq they're going to do their thing, but Rick Fox, Robert Horry, Derek Fisher, some different iterations, but Horace Grant, AC Green, Brian Shaw. I mean, these are all, that's how you compete for a championship. It's funny. Lakers had the Celtics last week. They had them. And I look at Boston's team and I'm like, I get it. Tatum and Jaylen Brown, amazing. Look how good they are after those two players. And they got that depth of 7, 8, 9 guys. I think that's what, clearly what OKC is trying to build and with some of these elite teams. But I love what you said, because I think there is a little bit of, I don't know if panic is the right word, but it's like, this didn't work, blow it up. These didn't work, blow it up. And the fan base doesn't help. I probably don't help, because I think we're having those conversations a lot. But you're right about that. I think that they have not been able to find, even if Austin Reeves is the guy that you think, hey, this is definitely a guy that's staying here. I don't know if you want him as your third best player for a championship team. And then after that, there's kind of question marks everywhere that you look. So that's a good observation there. You mentioned you've known JJ for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Did you think he would be a head coach in the NBA, number one? And when he got the Laker gig, what was kind of your initial thoughts of him with this specific team, just because of always the chatter and the expectations around the Lakers?
No, I didn't think he was going to be a head coach. I mean, but again, he knows the game. Like, he's extremely bright. Let's face it. When he started out podcasting, right? That was one of the podcasts you would go to because you were learning something. And he was really, saying stuff. Even when he was with the Sixers, I feel like you look at guys like in the league now, like TJ McConnell, other players. I mean, JJ took them under his wing, and I felt like, he was a good player. A good role model, a good mentor, did all those other things. I think, let's face it, being the head coach of the Lakers is probably, unless you win a championship, even if you win a championship, is the toughest job in the league.
Frank Vogel.
Right? Yeah, Frank Vogel. I mean, it's the toughest job in the league. I mean, not only that, it's like we're talking about, when you look at franchises, let's say you got the Yankees, right? And I know the Dodgers are big too. But what I'm talking about that is you have like, you have the Yankees, you have the Dallas Cowboys, you have the Lakers, you have the Toronto Maple Leafs. These are teams that have these huge fan bases, and they're always known for having stars, right? I mean, think about it. LeBron, any other team he went to, he was recognized as the best player that ever come through there. Well, he's not in the Lakers, right? So you have that. So the pressure is there. And then on top of that, you got the job people are perceiving because of your relationship with LeBron, right? So you get that. And so next thing you know, it's one of those things people are looking like, how much coaching is JJ actually doing? Is it LeBron coaching? And what happens if they don't get along? Who wins? You know what I mean? They have don't get along, but they have difference of opinions. Now, the problem is he's a first-year coach. Yes, he does have LeBron and he does have AD. But again, we talked about the other parts of the roster. There's some flaws there. And it's tough for him, right? Because, everything he does is going to be under the microscope. And it's just a tough job, I feel like, man, seriously. And you had Phil Jackson, who was a great, great coach. You had Pat Riley. You had other people who were good coaches. but it's like to the point where it takes a special type of person, in my opinion, to coach the Lakers, right? You have to, because you're going up against superstars. And put it this way, I remember one time the Rams were in the Super Bowl, and I covered the Lakers in playing the Sixers a couple years ago, and it was more people into the Lakers game than they were into the Rams into the Super Bowl. So I was just like, wow, this is different here.
Well, but I think, it's interesting because I think you take Dr. Jerry Buss. Let's use him as an example.
Mm-hmm.
He's arguably the greatest owner in the history of sports. Basically had the Lakers over his tenure in the NBA Finals 50% of the time. Okay, that's a real stat. I mean, give or take. But you created these expectations that are also it's not realistic.
Mm-hmm.
And then you look at today's NBA, and I think one of the beauties with today's NBA is you got a lot of teams that have a shot. And I think that's what they're looking for, right? They want a little bit more of that NFL model of saying, yeah, a team in OKC or a team in Memphis or a team in Cleveland or a team. What are the best front offices? You start kind of showing what those look like, but you still have this. Yeah, but it's the Lakers. Well, I get that, but it's not the same league. It's not the same ownership. It's the same family, but it's certainly not the same ownership. But that kind of comes with the territory. So I think what you're saying about how difficult of a job that is, when you mentioned JJ Redick, and then, well, he got the job because he was doing the pod with LeBron, and it's championship expectations or bust, or that always kind of comes with the territory of the Lakers. Hey, I'm curious to get your thoughts on, right before you came on, I was talking about Jimmy Butler.
Okay.
Third time he's been suspended now by the Miami Heat. And I guess, who looks worse in this situation is Miami's been a franchise that's always been top notch. It's Pat Riley, it's Eric Spoelstra. They just got their I's dotted and their T's crossed. Jimmy Butler, I think, is definitely a valuable player around the league and around the NBA. And wherever he ends up, if he gets traded in the next week and a half, I'm assuming he's going to get traded. Who's this hurting more? Is it hurting Jimmy Butler more? Is it hurting Miami more? Just your thoughts on how this is all played out.
I think we'll get the real answer after he gets traded. Like, you know what I mean? But right now, looking at it from afar, I think Jimmy looks worse than the Heat. And the reason why I'm saying that is because, it's one of those things where, getting out of Minnesota, you want to leave Minnesota. The things didn't really work out here for him in the Sixers, and we get all that. And you go to Miami, but it's kind of like, we all know, we hear about this Heat culture. We hear about how strict Pat Riley is, how, he and Shaq didn't get along, and next thing you know, Shaq got traded and this and that. And I feel like it's kind of like you keep poking the bear. And again, I haven't spoken to Jimmy or any of his people, like recently, but what it looks like is, would you be feeling this way if you didn't get if you got an extension? You know what I mean? If Pat Riley said, okay, Jimmy, we want to give you an extension and you're going to be here for a little bit longer. I mean, it's kind of hard to believe that he will be acting this way. And yes, when Jimmy does what Jimmy wants to do a lot of times, but when we hear that, okay, they told him he wasn't starting, and next thing you know, he walks out of the shoot around. Well, I'm sitting here honestly thinking, like, how I'm gonna pay for my daughter's college education, right? Whereas he's making $50 million a year, and he's upset because he's not going to start. But everyone knows that he's an all-star. So yes, that's going to upset you. But I feel like the reason why he looks worse is because, people in LA got real problems, man. People worrying about houses catching on fire. People worrying about inflation going up. And here's a guy that's making a lot of money, with commercials, basketball, all that type of stuff, his coffee. And he gets suspended a third time because they tell him he's not starting. You know what I mean? So, and it's kind of like, let's face it, it's the Heat culture. They're known for being strict. They're known for having not bending in what they want you to do. I mean, think about it. How many players didn't want to go there because they check your weight? They make you have to weigh a certain weight. You have to take a test. You have to do all types of stuff. And Jimmy was the man down there. But to me, the reason why he looks bad is because if they would have given him an extension, the money that he wanted, I don't know if he would be acting this way.
I like what you said too to start it off. Let's wait till Jimmy Butler's gets traded and he gets a chance to kind of speak his mind as well. But yeah, before you came on, I mentioned we were having the conversation, and yeah, I couldn't agree more. And when you start, you add kind of real life scenarios to it, right? You're making X amount of dollars, and look at all the other issues that people might have across the country or the world or whatever the case is. It's not a good look. And it again, it's a franchise that is known for, we got our stuff together, right? This is not a franchise where you're like, oh, it's that franchise again. No, it's Miami. Like that is the cream of the crop when it comes to at least the perception of what some of these franchises are. Keith, final one for you, and I appreciate the time. So Lakers got the Sixers tonight, and Keith helped kind of break down the Lakers and the Sixers. I know it's January 28th, and this is a tough prediction to make, but just from what you've seen in the NBA so far, let's assume the rosters are as they are. Give me who you think comes out of the East, who comes out of the West, just based on the info that we got.
Based off the info that we have, I think Boston is going to come out of the East. I do. Like, if you look at Cleveland, and Cleveland was phenomenal early on, they've been playing a little bit above 500 basketball like the last couple weeks, right? A little bit. And they have a young team, and everything has been exciting. But Boston looks like a team to me that they can get a little bit bored.
Going through the motions.
Going through the motions. I mean, let's face it. Like, they're not even making adjustments. All they're doing is coming down there and saying, we're going to stand in the corner and hit threes, right? And it's like, yo, won't you just drive the lane? It's wide open. Nah, we're going to hit threes. So I feel like that they're going through the motions. The West, I feel like the West, believe it or not, is still a little bit kind of wide open. Like, you know what I mean? Like, the thing is, I really love what OKC is doing,
sure.
Right? They look good. But my thing is, they're still just a young team. And the question is, are they going to be able to step up in the postseason and do things, right? Like last year, everybody thought they won their first round series, and then it was different. So I think, to me, I really can't put my finger on who's going to come out of there. I would have to lean towards them, but at the same time, I think what everybody says the East is back, but I still think it's Boston. I feel like when we talk about the West, I just feel like it's wide open, man. I'm sorry, but if you put a gun to my head, I'm gonna have to say the Nuggets. I'm gonna have to say the Nuggets. I'm gonna have to say the Nuggets. If you put a gun to my head, because I think that, believe it or not, I know a lot of people in LA don't like them, but I kind of like what Russ is doing out there, right? And what I'm saying is, we all know that Russ isn't a good shooter, but it just seems like Russ is letting the Joker get in great positions, and he's always looking for him. And then what that does is, when you take the ball and you got the ball in Russ's hands, then all the other guys are moving around, and then all of a sudden they're getting easier shots as well, right? So when we look at it, I just feel like, again, the West is wide open, but I think with the Joker, him being such a hard guy to stop, and they're feeding him the ball now, getting him in great positions, I just feel like they'll be the ones that come out of the West. But again, I wouldn't be surprised if they don't.
But that's the hesitation I think people have when you do mention OKC, is you always feel like you need to see a team get there before you say they're going to get there. And I think that is part of, and OKC can very well happen this year. But until they do, I get some of the hesitation. Keith, very, very appreciative of your time, brother. Thank you for coming on, breaking down the game and throwing some NBA topics with us. So thank you very much for doing so. All right, brother.
Thanks for having me on, man. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, man. We'll connect soon. That is Keith Pompey right there. Good dude. Good dude. And I like probably going to see a little bit more of this too as we get a little bit closer to the playoffs, where connecting with some people that have ties with other teams and can also talk NBA. So, expect that a little bit, but very, very gracious with his time. So nice to have him on. Guys, okay, two things that we were talking about a little bit earlier. We were talking about the Jimmy Butler situation. I love his example about Jimmy Butler. I love that example of saying, here I am making sure that I can make payments so my kids could get through college, and Jimmy Butler's walking out of practice because he's not a starter. It's a bad look for Jimmy Butler. And I'm not telling you that the Miami Heat didn't have faults, or I thought Pat Riley's comments in the offseason were way too aggressive towards Jimmy Butler. I'm like, damn, relax. So it's not to say that's not perfect, but when the dust is settling, I think the Jimmy Butler situation's, I think it looks worse on him. We'll wait, see where he gets traded. Last thing that we'll get into that he mentioned there, now you got him saying, remember when the show started that I was talking about how a lot of people think the Western Conference is still wide open. Bobby Marks had that article with ESPN. It's kind of wide open. If you told me to pick any team right now in the Western Conference, right now, that I think is going to get to the NBA Finals, or the team that I'd have most confidence in getting in, and everybody is healthy, I lean more towards Dallas. But they're not healthy. OKC, I have some hesitations too. I think Denver's got to make a move. I think they're going to need more depth. So I don't know if I look at Denver as the team that's going to come out of the Western Conference. And clearly everybody knows how we feel about the Lakers. They got to make another move. So they got to make another move. All right, what did I do? I told you guys I had some overtime for you guys, right? Did I not tell you guys? Look at us. Look at us. All right, let's see what we got here. As a Laker fan, let's read some of your comments here, and then we're going to call it a day. I pretty much got through everything that I wanted to get through today. Let's see what we got here. As a Laker fan, the Lakers are not coming out in the West. LaFlop wants the ball, and AD no show. Okay, well, thank you for your thoughts there. Russ is shooting better, 41.7% from the field with LA, but 47.6% with other teams. Guys, sometimes it's just fit. Russ didn't all of a sudden become a player that didn't know how to play with the Lakers, right? He didn't just all of a sudden become a guy that he just forgot how to play basketball. A lot of things have to do with fit. So I don't have listen, Russell Westbrook having success with the Denver Nuggets, I have no emotion either way. I don't watch games hoping that Russell Westbrook is a terrible basketball player. And then I'm not rooting for him to go have triple doubles every night. I don't have any emotion towards it. Those who have emotion towards it, I think you just, maybe bitter that it didn't work out with the Lakers the way you were hoping for. Laker fans wanted Russ to ball out in LA. That didn't happen. I got no hard feelings. I'm the same way. I got no hard feelings. What do I care? Russell Westbrook's one of the all-time greatest players to ever play the game. A triple-double machine when he was with OKC. I don't got an issue with Russ. I think there are some fans that obviously take everything so personal. All right, let's get another one here. I think it is unlikely that we get Myles Turner if we play our cards right. Pacers don't seem to really want to pay him. We would pay him, though. A stretch five is most valuable in Milwaukee and LA. Okay, I see what you're saying here. So most likely they don't get him, but if they did or they find a way to do it, there could be some opportunities there. If you missed part of the show earlier, I was making a case. There was another article that came out on Myles Turner and his potential to be leaving Indiana, and how LA would be obviously the Lakers would be a perfect fit. It changes everything. This entire roster dynamic, expectations, everything changes. If they found a way to get Myles Turner, I don't care what name that you had I've been looking at over the last month or so. Myles Turner would be such a perfect fit for the Lakers. Cleveland's not going to do anything because of Donovan Mitchell. Is the next Steve Francis, hog the ball. They got to go make a move. Cam Johnson, one of those type of players. They need a 3. If they got a real 3, now you got a squad there that could compete with Boston. The Celtics, in my opinion, and I'd probably take the Knicks over the Cavs. I really haven't seen the Knicks, but I do like their roster. Here's what the Celtics are doing. They won an NBA championship. They know they have what it takes to win an NBA championship. They got a roster that's the favorite to win an NBA championship. You know what they're doing right now? They're going through the 82-game grind that every team's got to go through after you win a chip. They are going through the motions. They are waking up and saying, okay, what do I got to do this morning? I need to shower. I need to brush my teeth. I need to make sure my bed is done. And then I'm going to go to work. And I'm not going to be in a hurry. I'm not going to be in a rush. I'm not going to be passionate about it. Tell me as we get closer to the playoffs, and then I'll be ready. That's the Boston Celtics every single night. At least that's what I feel. Let's see what we got here. Miami and Pat, 8-0 squad for weak dudes. Pat Riley would eat Joel Embiid alive midcourt. Miami have a jersey that's called Heat Culture. They have, this is literally what they're known for, is their culture, which I think is a big reason why Jimmy Butler and the Miami Heat were a perfect combination, because Jimmy Butler was known as a dog. But Jimmy wanted to get paid. He didn't get paid, and now he's acting out about it. All right, let's see what we got here. It's a good one too. Shaq's problem in Miami was his weight. Butler is his entitlement. Hey, Butler was a key piece to that team. Got to 2 NBA Finals. I give Jimmy Butler all the credit for what he did in Miami. But Miami is also running a business of, what have you done for me lately, not what have you done for me in the past. They're living in the present, and they can't pay players that they don't feel like. Let me give you guys a good example. We're talking with Keith Pompey, Philadelphia Inquirer, and how about what he was saying about Paul George? There's already probably some buyer's remorse from the Philadelphia 76ers saying, did we just give Paul George a 4-year deal for 200 and some change? Are we going to have that guy for, I think this is going to be his 15th game missed. Are they really going to have that guy for 3 more years after this season? So I think that obviously comes with the territory. All right, are we done? Are we good? Everybody feel like they got their fix in today? Did you get your money's worth? Did you get your money's worth? I'm asking you guys the question. See if I got any more here that I want to squeeze in. AD plays exceptionally well when there is some sort of selfish motivation involved. Look at how well he's played against Defensive Player of the Year candidate centers. AD's good, man. Come on, guys. Anthony Davis is the man. He is. Now, are there time? I'm not going to tell you he's a top 5 player in the league, because you got to be there every single night doing it, but you can make an argument that he is. I continue to make this argument. Tell me when the NBA decides that they got an award for the best 2-way player in the league. How is that not hyped up or promoted or an award given to that? Because Anthony Davis would be in that category every single year. You'd still do your MVP, do your Defensive Player of the Year, but best 2-way player in the league. Okay, Lakers got the Sixers tonight. So here's what we got going on for tonight. So Lakers tip off 4:30 tonight. They take on the Philadelphia 76ers. No Embiid, no Paul George. Andre Drummond is out. They got a bunch of guys that are going to be out. Let's see what happens tonight. If the Lakers are able to, obviously go get a W, then I don't think anybody's going to care about what happened last night. But I got a little bit of concern in the amount of minutes they had to play last night against Charlotte, and second of a back-to-back against Philly. So let's see what the Lakers are able to do tonight. Obviously, if anything goes down trade-wise or anything like that, we'll come back on. Please do me a favor, if you guys don't mind, subscribe to the channel. Trying to get to 30,000 subscribers, growing this channel day by day. putting up as much content as we can, and also trying to put up content that I think you guys are interested in. So thank you for being a part of the show. Thank you to Keith Pompey from the Philadelphia Inquirer for coming on. Lakers Sixers tonight. I'll be back after the Lakers take on the Sixers. We'll take it from there. Thank you, everybody. Hope you guys have a great rest of your morning, and we'll catch up with you guys a little bit later.